started supporting United in the mid-80s when Bryan Robson was in his prime, and for me, as it was for so many Reds in those days, what he was and what he did meant everything. I loved Big Norm and Sparky, but I wanted to be Robbo, Captain Marvel. The way he was spoken about, respected and lauded in the media and in sports programmes led me to believe that he was someone above every other player, captain of Manchester United and captain of England. When he scored in the 85 FA Cup semi-final replay and then went on to lift the cup for the second time, that cemented Bryan Robson into my consciousness. So here it is, a truly deserved United Legends video on our greatest captain and midfielder, in my eyes at least, Bryan Robson. Bryan Robson was born in Chester-le-Street, County Durham on the 11th of January 1957 to a family of Newcastle United supporters and was the second of 4 children, and growing up he often went to St James's Park. Despite being of smaller stature, the young Bryan had trials with several clubs including Newcastle, but signed apprenticeship papers with West Bromwich Albion in 1972. Bryan Robson was a footballer who could do everything and was a box-to-box midfielder in the truest sense of the term. Never shirked the tackle. Robbo went in 100% or not at all. There were no half measures, and would even become an enforcer when necessary. If his teammates were in trouble on or off the pitch, the skipper would step in. He garnered such a level of respect that even when he got a tackle wrong, in sensing the opposition, they had the good sense not to square up to him. A leader on the pitch and in the dressing room, the skipper was the glue that kept the side together in the 80s. I would inspire with a never-say-die attitude, his fearless commitment, and his tactical decision-making and timing on the field. He was also a midfielder who was a scorer of goals, and the fact that he got just shy of a century for United from that position speaks volumes. He could also pass, head, was both-footed, albeit predominantly left-sided, and showed his worth by making the PFA Team of the Season 5 years on the run from 1981 to 86, only missing out on the later editions due to injury. He claimed a 6th accolade in the 88-89 season, aged 32. Possessing a Rolls-Royce engine, he could confidently rely on gallons of stamina as he charged up and down the pitch and still played at the highest level at 37 years of age. Navigating his way through the youth side of the reserves at the Hawthorns, Bryan finally made his debut for the club in the 2nd Division on the 12th of April 1975 at York City. He would be the first of 737 club matches. West Brom had been promoted in the 76-77 season to the First Division, and at that point of his career Robson was being played in a variety of positions, including left back, which is where he was playing when he experienced his first major injury, breaking his ankle. Coming back after just 2 months, he refractured it. By the January, he'd broken the other one. This would become a theme as Robson dove into tackles where angels fear to tread. With the arrival of Ron Atkinson at the helm in 1978, Robbo became a key player and earned his first England cap as the side finished in its best position for a generation. Success breeds success, and the departure of Dower boss Dave Sexton at Old Trafford left a larger-than-life hole for big Ron Atkinson to step into, and he wanted his 2 midfield generals, Remy Moses and Bryan Robson, to join him. Bob Paisley's Liverpool were in the hunt for the Geordie, but the lure of United and his old boss were too great, and after almost 250 appearances for West Brom, he joined United for a British record fee of £1.5 million in 1981 and a 6-year contract. Ron Atkinson famously described him as pure gold. He wasn't wrong. Robbo's United League debut came against City in a 0-0 draw, and it was the first time he wore the coveted number 7 shirt, carrying on a tradition of United legends of the past, Johnny Berry, George Best, Willie Morgan and Steve Coppell, whom he requisitioned it from. As Steve Coppell relinquished his number 7 shirt, Ray Wilkins relinquished the club captaincy to the 25-year-old in 1982, and in the following year led his side to Wembley, and after a replay and a brace in the final, lifted the FA Cup and his first major trophy, one of 9 pieces of silverware he won at Old Trafford. Despite some amazing cup final wins and individual performances in crucial games like cup semi-finals, it's argued by most Reds that his finest hour was in the European Cup Winners' Cup against Barcelona in 1984. 2 down from the first leg in Spain, Robbo led his side to an unforgettable comeback in what fans who were there would say is the greatest atmosphere they'd ever experienced at Old Trafford. The 3-0 win led to progression, but success in the competition was dashed by Juventus in the semis. Robbo missed out on both legs due to a hamstring injury. By that time, there were strong rumours that he was off to Italy, where he could have earned a lot more money, but the skipper stayed loyal and would remain at Old Trafford for another decade. He signed a 7-year contract at the end of that season, once the Juventus approach fizzled out. 2 years later, but in the 85-86 season, with the first 10 games won, it started to look like a reality. However, by the new year, the wheels were starting to fall off, and a dislocated shoulder injury at West Ham in the February essentially ended his season and United's title charge. Robbo had been noticed by the England team set-up during his time at the Hawthorns, being called up for his debut in 1980, a 2-0 win over Ireland at Wembley. After playing all the qualifying matches for the 82 World Cup in Spain, he featured in the England squad, sporting the number 16 shirt. He went on to score the fastest goal in World Cup finals history up to that point, in 27 seconds against France. He added a second in a 3-1 victory, but England would go out in the second group stage. By the November, he was skipper of both club and country, and was scoring freely, helping himself to a hat-trick against Turkey. Robbo would go on to lead his country out on 65 occasions. As mentioned earlier, injuries would be a frustrating perennial theme throughout the skipper's career, mainly due to the fact he would literally throw himself into any challenge and then weigh up the consequences later on. A dislocated shoulder against Morocco in the 86 finals meant that the Three Lions were robbed of its leadership in the tournament, where they went out to Maradona's hand and genius. Euro 88 was a big disappointment as England lost all 3 group matches, albeit Robson was the standout player. By the 1990 World Cup, aged 33, he predictably suffered from an injury again, this time his arm in the game against the Netherlands in the group stage, which ruled him out of the rest of the tournament. England would bow out in the semi-finals. The England captain's final appearance was in a Euro 92 qualifier against Turkey in October 1991. By the time he finished that match, he'd collected 90 caps, had scored 26 goals, and participated in 4 major tournaments. If only he'd stayed fit in 86 or 90, who knows how far England could have got. After that failed title charge and a poor start to the next season, Big Ron was replaced by Alex Ferguson in November 1986. The Scottish disciplinarian started to change things from top to bottom at Old Trafford, including the drinking culture at the club, which robbed the skipper of the likes of drinking buddies Paul McGrath and Norman Whiteside. However, Fergie considered Robbo his greatest asset, whether he was on the pitch or on the treatment table, and the captain cut down on the booze. Finally, after 3.5 years, Robbo lifted the FA Cup for a record 3rd time in a memorable cup run and subsequent final against Palace. This victory propelled United forward to what Bryan Robson considered his finest hour, the Cup Winners' Cup final triumph over Barcelona in Rotterdam in 1991. A maiden League Cup win for the club followed, but the captain, as with the European Super Cup earlier in that season, missed out through injury. United's title charge to try and claim their first league championship in a quarter of a century foundered against Leeds at the final hurdle. In 1993, the wait was finally over as Manchester United won the inaugural Premier League title after a hard-fought run-in against Aston Villa, managed by Robbo's former boss, Ron Atkinson. Steve Bruce, the default club captain in Robson's prolonged absences, lifted the trophy together with this iconic United legend. The following season would be the Geordie's last, and I'm proud to say I witnessed his final goal for United in a 4-1 FA Cup semi-final replay against Oldham at Main Road. Robbo was part of the double-winning side that year, although he missed out on the FA Cup final victory over Chelsea after being dropped by the manager. That said, he didn't pout and instead continued to support the lads until they crossed the finishing line. That's the measure of the man. In the close season of 1994, Bryan Robson finally left Old Trafford after 13 years of selfless service. The Geordie had played 461 matches for us, scoring 99 goals in the process. And if this downward header against Southampton in the 1992 FA Cup 4th round tie had been correctly included, it would have been 100. He set a record of 3 FA Cups won as captain, and on top of that he claimed 2 Charity Shields, European Cup Winners' Cup, a League Cup, 2 Premier League titles. He came to Old Trafford to win trophies. He certainly made the correct decision. Moving to the Riverside Stadium, Robbo became player-manager of second-tier Middlesbrough. He took the club to the title and promotion in the first season. With some big-name signings, he led Borough to 2 cup finals in 97, but ended up on the losing side on both occasions and was relegated. However, Robbo, ever resilient, managed to guide Borough back to the top flight the following season and also led the club out at Wembley again for a second successive time in the League Cup, albeit the outcome was the same. Robson left the post in 2001. He went on to manage Bradford, his old club West Brom, Sheffield United and the Thai national team, but with far less success. The skipper had also returned to Old Trafford as a club ambassador to promote United's image abroad. Bryan Robson is Manchester United to me, and if he'd only stayed fit, who knows what more the club and even England could have won. But what did he mean to you? Please comment below and like, share, and if you've not already done so, subscribe. Thank you as always for your support.